Welcome to a Diverse Orange, our conversations about diversity here in Central Florida. My guest today is Kona Kamai. Welcome, Kona.
Thank you, Terry. It's good to be here.
So, Kona, someone looking at this might go, what's diverse about this? So, I know that you are very involved with the Polynesian community, and what is about that? What's your heritage?
So, my heritage, I am Hawaiian, Tahitian, Caucasian. And so, family coming from the islands of Tahiti. And I also have my grandpa's side, which is hailing from the islands of Hawaii.
And where were you born?
So, I was actually born in Huntington Beach, California, and grew up in California, was in Utah for a little bit, and then actually lived in Las Vegas for a couple of years. And then from Las Vegas, about 3 years ago now, I actually moved out here to Orlando, Florida.
And so, growing up in California, you look like a California kid.
I will take that as a compliment for sure.
Um, how did your heritage affect you or in your growing up?
So, I mean, my family has been very involved in our culture from a very young age. And so, my grandma was actually one of the first ones to bring the Tahitian culture to the Polynesian Cultural Center in Hawaii. And then, growing up, my dad has had a dance group, my grandma's had a dance group. And so, we've always been very big, like culturally wise, dancing, performing, doing things like that. And then I myself have danced a little bit and have done that. But me and my brothers have kind of gone more or less we've all played sports, we've all done, gone that route as well, while also, of course, still maintaining and participating and sharing our culture.
Um, and I guess what do they call that? Your American passing. I mean, you would not know from looking at you of all your heritage. So I
Correct.
suppose were there any times in your growing up that your heritage burst forth in situations where it wasn't like on stage?
What do you mean?
I don't know. Uh, I'm just trying to explore what diversity meant and if it had any effect on you as you were growing up.
For sure. And I mean, I think like in that aspect, right? Like having fair skin, a lot of people don't for saying know my background. They don't obviously automatically assume that I am. But it is always interesting because I love having the conversations with people and also, being able to show people and teach people that, coming from the islands of Tahiti, we have a lot of European influence. And so I actually have cousins that are fairer than I am. And so, we're not all the super dark skin, but we have a really good variety. And so that's always been one where, I love taking that moment and being able to help educate people as well as share that with people. And of course, if you've met me in person, I have like mine, I have my tribal, and then I have it on my legs as well. If, that's also my way of being able to continue our culture because our culture is hugely passed down and usually still interpreted through our tattoos. And so that's, of course, a big aspect for me of representing where I come from, representing our islands, and being able to do that. And so I guess like you were saying, I mean, there's always been opportunities. I've usually been, the fair skinned or Holly boy that's dancing or, with everybody. And so that was always a fun one of growing up. My nickname has always been Holly boy by my uncles and all that. But, it's that opportunity that I try to take, whenever I can to help educate people and, share our culture, share that with them because most of them just say or look at it and it's like, oh, you're a white kid with tattoos. And it's like, well, I'm actually, of Hawaiian and Tahitian descent. And that's why, my tattoos are not just tattoos. They're actually my ancestors. They're actually our story and they're our heritage, coming down the generations.
So you used the term haole, which
Mm-hmm.
basically means other than the natives
Correct.
of the islands, which I know from friends who've lived in Hawaii. It can be a derogatory
For
term,
sure. For
uh,
sure.
but coming from your uncle, it would be endearing, I suppose.
Correct. And I mean, of course, it's what do they call it? A dermot of love or something like that. But I mean, anything to me, anything can be taken the wrong way or it can be meant in a negative way and it can be meant in a positive way. And I've just always, that's been my nickname. I've got cousins where, you kind of have fallen into that same nickname, but it's just, it's one where, I mean, it is what it is. And of course, like for me now, it's definitely something I'm more confident with. It was I would say a pretty big struggle growing up. I always felt out of place. I always wanted to be darker skinned, or I always, hated that I was more light skinned. But at, where we're at now, it's just, I mean, it's a beautiful opportunity to be able to share our culture even further with people that may not have thought, or, you know what I mean? It's a conversation starter for sure that I've learned to embrace and really enjoyed in an aspect of being able to then, further educate and just help share that with people.
And what brought you to Central Florida?
So, fun story. I have a video production company. We actually had the opportunity to be the media for Fusion Fest this past weekend. And so I have a video production company, and we were doing productions in Vegas. And I actually had a friend of mine reach out to me and say, hey, I need some video work done. And he owns a solar company. So they needed some marketing commercials. They needed some, interior content. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And it was funny because I actually thought he was in Utah, where I had originally met him. And he had said, no, I'm actually here in Florida. So about 3 years ago, October, he flew me out, and they absolutely loved what we had produced for them. And they said, basically, we want you to come out, or basically, we want you to continue to do content for us. And I stepped off the plane, and I had actually, before then, I had never been to Florida before in my life. I knew of it, but I'd never been here. And stepped off the plane. I was like, what is this place? It reminded me of home as far as the humidity. It was a more tropical setting. So I immediately fell in love with it, stepped off the plane and wanted to be here. So when they loved everything we did and had basically said, we want you out here, I had let them know. I'm like, hey, if you can get me somewhere to stay, I'll move out here literally tomorrow. And that's kind of what happened. Came out in October, was supposed to be here for a week, stayed for 3 weeks, and then ended up moving here in December. And then really have never looked back. I mean, Vegas will always be home. It'll always have a special place in my heart, as well as, of course, California and Utah, but Florida for sure. If I'm not in Tahiti, like Florida is definitely the place I'll be.
Yeah, I can imagine coming from the desert in Las Vegas to Orlando.
I'm like, I need some water in the air. I am an ocean boy. I'm an island boy. I need to be near the ocean, and Vegas is an absolute blast, but it is extremely hot and extremely dry.
Yeah. So, and how has it been finding a place here and fitting in here in Central Florida?
It's honestly been an absolute blessing. I consider myself very fortunate. I fell into the Baldwin Park area. I had obviously no clue Florida. I didn't know cities. I didn't know anything. And so the company, when they actually had gotten me an apartment, it was here in Baldwin Park. And so when I moved in here, I was like, I absolutely love this area. It's beautiful, obviously, with Winter Park right here by downtown Orlando. And then, so yeah, just falling into this, I mean, I absolutely love the area. And then, of course, Miami's 3.5 hours away, so it's easy to jump down there to also facilitate clientele that we have down there. But I mean, Florida's Florida. It's been amazing. We've gone through a couple hurricanes, so obviously being here in Central Florida, or at least in the Orlando area, we've been very fortunate that we didn't really get a lot of damage. Of course, our prayers goes out to those who have been affected greatly, on the coastlines. But it's just, Florida's been an absolute dream. I mean, it's awesome to be able to wake up, go surf, and come back and work and, do that. So
see, there's the California boy coming out.
Yeah. So I'm like, you see, I mean, I've got my surfboards, the longboards, like it's definitely a fun time for sure.
And have you found a Tahitian community here?
I have my aunt. So it was actually really cool. I was not as familiar with my family that I actually had out here. And I was actually out here for about a year before I ran into my aunt. She was like, your family. And so they were like, well, come to the lounge, come and see everybody. So we went, and then basically got to know my cousins and all my family that's out here. And so then, of course, like finding them, it's been amazing because then, we're able to get together. We're able to, we call it bareng, but we're able to get together and jam and just be able to, really just dance and continue our culture here. Where I would definitely say in the first like year that I was out here, it was definitely something I missed for sure, because, being back home, my grandma, like all of that, we would get together, we'd play, just being together. And so being out here, I didn't really have anybody for the first little while I was out here. And then, of course, getting reconnected with my cousins and just being able to really like, find the family that was out here was a really cool thing. And then, of course, now, being able to work with my aunt side by side in a lot of, different ventures and a lot of what she's doing, and just, my cousins as well, because they have the Kava Bowl. So we've been able to help them and just, it's really cool being able to support each other, work together, and I mean, obviously, family's everything.
Great. Well, we're delighted that you found family here, and that you're fitting into our larger Central Florida family as well. So,
Sure.
thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Terry. It's been fun.
You bet, and thank you for watching this edition of Diverse Orange.